Before you listen to this story, I want to tell you that this is real. My name is Emily Kane. I'm 26 years old. And what I'm about to share will not only disturb you, it may change the way you see your own family. 5 years ago, my younger sister Chloe vanished without a trace. She left for school one rainy Thursday morning and never came back. No signs, no messages, no ransom, no evidence. The police closed her case after for months, calling it a likely runaway. But I knew her. Chloe was shy, soft-spoken, and terrified of the dark. She would never run away. What happened to her was planned, and the deeper I dug, the more I realized that my family, especially my mother, was hiding something far more sinister than I could have imagined. So if you're watching this, please subscribe to this channel, share this story, and let others know, because this is the story of how I uncovered a hidden room, a buried past, and a sister who might never have existed at all. Officially, it started on Chloe's 5th anniversary, 5 years since her disappearance, when I received a package at my apartment doorstep. No return address, just my name in thick black ink and a single word on the flap: remember? Inside was an old cassette tape, the kind we used to record fake radio shows on as kids. I didn't even own a cassette player anymore, but I borrowed one from a thrift store nearby, plugged it in, and pressed play. A sharp hiss, then a voice, her voice: "Emily, if you found this." They lied. I was never safe. My heart dropped. I played it over and over, trying to pick out background noise. There was the faint buzz of fluorescent lights, the metallic clang of something heavy being dragged, and a second voicemail, distorted, saying, "Subject 41 not responding." It just dosage. That moment rewrote my reality. Chloe didn't just disappear. She had been taken, and whoever took her had been watching me for years. I started tracing back events: my mother's sudden trips to wellness retreats, my father's obsessive destruction of Chloe's belongings, even our old neighbor Mr. Halberd, who always warned us to stay out of the basement when we were kids. I returned to our childhood home, now abandoned and left to rot after our parents' divorce, boards nailed over windows, a rusted chain on the door, but I knew the trick to bypass it. My father used to keep a spare key taped behind the mailbox. It was still there. Inside, the house smelled of dust, decay, and something bitterly chemical. I wandered through the empty kitchen, the stripped living room, the shattered mirrors in the hallway, until I found myself standing before the basement door, still locked. I broke it open. The stairs groaned beneath me as I descended into the dark. At the bottom was a strange sound, like a soft mechanical whirring, and then I saw it, a hidden hallway buhl behind a false wall. It wasn't part of the house's original layout. I followed it. At the end was a metal door labeled simply "Observation Room 3C." My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside, the walls were padded, lined with old soundproofing foam, and in the center sat a small wooden chair and a desk. On it, notebooks labeled Chloe, each page filled with her handwriting, logs, notes, entries, a diary of pain, confusion, chemical tests, isolation, and the growing fear that she was being used for something she didn't understand. "They take me out when the moon is full." The man with the white coat says, "I'm almost ready. I just want to go home." I collapsed to the floor. My sister had been here, imprisoned for years, and we never knew. My parents had lied. The police had lied. And worst of all, I began to question my own memories. Had I ever really seen Chloe leave for school that morning? Or was that just something I believed because someone told me it happened? I took the tapes, the notebooks, the evidence, and left the house that night with one mission: find the man in the white coat, find out who Subject 41 was, and bring Chloe home, dead or alive. Because if I was the only one who remembered her, then I was the only one who could set her free. I couldn't breathe the morning after I found the tapes and journals in the diary room. My hands were still trembling, my mind racing with 100 timelines that didn't make sense anymore. Memories of Chloe in the kitchen, on the swing, laughing at cartoons, all suddenly felt fabricated, like flashbacks placed there by someone else. I laid the notebooks across my floor, matching her handwriting, her entries, her fear. And then I read something that made my skin crawl. Dr. R wears all white, smells like smoke and medicine. Calls me Echo, Echo, not Chloe, not subject. 41, a Choan name, a code, a label meant to strip identity and rewrite it. But there was Moriak notebook had timestamps, treatment logs, and codes referencing batch X and phase merge. My sister hadn't just been imprisoned, had been tested. And someone had been trying to merge her into something else. I scanned the pages for patterns, and one location popped up repeatedly, Windmere Institute, followed by an address outside of Ashgrove, a town 3 hours from where I live at an old psychological center that shut down in 2007 after being absorbed into a private mental health trust. That was my first destination. Lucas, my best friend from college and former forensic psych major, offered to come. We packed cameras, voice recorders, and a burner phone. He brought bolt cutters. On the way, I played the cassette again this time, slowing the playback and heard something I hadn't caught before. Footsteps overlapping with a machine voice, saying, Echo stabilization attempt 9 failed. Personality bleed detected. Personality bleed. What were they doing to her? When we reached Windmere, the place looked dead. Ivy strangling the stone building, windows shattered. Half the roof caved in, but the side wing was still intact, locked by heavy rusted chains. We broke in. Inside, the walls were covered in peeling paint and yellowed patient charts, but room 1C was still marked. On the floor was a cracked file cabinet. Inside, employee logs, and among them, a photo, him, white coat, cigarette in hand, standing beside a chair, and strapped into that chair girl. Black hair, my sister, her eyes swollen from crying. His name tag read, Dr. Remy Strath. The next file listed him as a cognitive fusion specialist, formerly employed by something called Aethel Research Initiative, a lab that had partnered with Windmere before its closure. I searched him online, anything, scrubbed, but I found an old email chain between Windmere and Remy S at aethlbiotics.net discussing young female candidates showing psychic reverb, and one named Echo 9B, Chloe. She had been Echo 9B. I ran out of the building, breathless. Lucas found another lead, an old invoice for child subject retrieval billed to a private address in Crestwater. We drove there immediately. It was a massive farmhouse, isolated, wrapped in fog, with an iron gate that hadn't been opened in years. But we found tire marks recent. That night, while waiting for a drone we sent overhead to finish scanning, I got a text from an unknown number. You're not supposed to remember her. Walk away, Emily. No name, no reply possible. The next morning, a small package was delivered to my apartment. Inside was one of Chloe's bracelets, purple and gold, the one she wore the morning she vanished. It smelled like bleach, and attached was a photo of me, taken yesterday. At Windmere, someone was following us, watching me. They knew I found the journals. I rushed back to the old house to recheck the diary room, and found it ransacked, papers torn, floor covered in boot prints, the chair missing. But they'd missed one thing, a floorboard near the vent, loose. Beneath it, a tape recorder. And when I played either voice again, if they find this, they'll come for you too. Dr. R said my memories don't belong to me, that they're training me to forget you. The voice cuts out, then static, then a phrase, like a chant. Echo is memory. Echo is purpose. Echo is not Chloe. They weren't just torturing her, they were rewriting her entire identity. The man in the white coat, Remy, wasn't killing children. He was manufacturing obedience, trying to erase who they were and replace it with who they were told to be. And my sister, she fought it. Every day, every tape, every journal, every message was her screaming against becoming Echo. I cried for hours, not just because I missed her, but because now I understood what they did. But I wasn't alone anymore. That night, Lucas traced the Aethel server activity to a new facilitistal activity in government land disguised as a wildlife conservation site. If Chloe What was left of her was still alive. She was inside those walls. This wasn't just a rescue. No, it was a war against the people who tried to erase my sister and turn her into something else. And I was going to burn it all down, even if it killed me. After that night, I knew I couldn't go back, not to my apartment, not to work, not to the life I had carefully built around pretending I was fine. Pretending Chloe was just a tragic memory and not an ongoing experiment being carried out in real time. Every file we opened, every audio log we uncovered pushed me closer to a horrifying reality. My sister wasn't missing, she was trapped in a system designed to delete her soul while preserving the shell of her body, all under a name that wasn't hers anymore. Echo 9B. Lucas and I moved into an off-grid cabin owned by his uncle, deep in the woods with no address, no cameras, and no Wi-Fi, just 2 burners and a satellite uplink we used for secure, encrypted research. It was there that we finally gained access to Aethel's hidden server, thanks to an ex-cyber forensics officer we paid in cryptocurrency, who didn't ask why we wanted access to a server labeled Echo Protocol Redline. The files were horrifying: videos, test logs, maps of facilities, including the one we'd traced to the Crestwater Conservation Area. The facility was real, active, codenamed the Glass Nest. Inside the archives, I found Chloe recorded, tested, observed. One video clip showed her strapped to a reclining medical chair, wires coiled across her skull, her voice low, repeating a phrase, "I am Echo, I do not resist." But her hands told another story. They clenched and trembled as if her body knew she was lying. I collapsed watching it. Lucas took over, downloading everything while I stared at a redacted file titled Memory Splice Trials, Phase 2 Initiates, Subjects 9A 9D. Chloe was 9B. That meant there were others, and the goal, to break human identity, separate memory from emotion, and reconstruct obedience through neurochemical imprinting. They weren't just building followers, they were crafting blank vessels, and Chloe was one of the earliest successful resistors. She wasn't supposed to remember me, but she did. Somehow, that meant she was dangerous to them, which also meant they hadn't killed her yet. Not because of mercy, but because they needed her for data, which gave me a narrow window to get her back alive. But this wasn't something I could walk into unarmed. So Lucas and I posed as 2 anonymous documentary journalists and posted a classified inquiry on a dark research forum asking about Aethel biotics, biological isolation chambers. Within hours, we were contacted by a former guard from one of their decommissioned branches. He said his name was Cole, and that he had seen things he'd never forget: children without names, daily injections, echo chambers that pulsed with sound waves designed to fracture memory. He had been 22 at the time. Now, he wanted redemption. Cole agreed to meet. We drove 5 hours to a burned-out motel off Route 11. He looked rough and shaved, sunken eyes, but he handed us a keycard and a blueprint. "This will get you through the external gate," he said. "But once you hit the lab core, you'll need a retina scan or a subject's imprint chip." I asked what that meant. "You need one of them," he said flatly. Alive. That night I didn't sleep. I stared at Chloe's last journal entry, the one I hadn't let myself read yet. It said, "They said I'll forget my name tomorrow. They said when I wake up, I won't know who Emily is. But if I see her, I think I'll know. I think my heart will scream it before my voice does." I cried for hours. Not just because of the pain in her words, but because deep down, I still feared that if I found her, she wouldn't recognize me, that the thing they turned her into would be too far gone, that I was chasing a ghost with my sister's face. But the next morning, I made my choice. I would go into the glass nest. I would find her. I would bring her out, or I would never leave. Lucas backed me up. We trained for 2 weeks, mapped escape routes, packed medical gear, hacked a local police scanner to track response times. Cole agreed to drive us through the first checkpoint wearing a fake pest control uniform. I wore a stolen tech badge and carried a tablet filled with scrambled dummy data. The day we went in, The forest was eerily silent. Fog wrapped the facility like a warning. We reached the outer gate. Use the key card, it buzzed. Clicked open. No. Alarms. Not yet. Inside, the facility smelled sterile to clean, like bleach and ammonia mixed with cold air. We walked with confidence through the halls, nodding at cameras. Passing through empty white corridors. Finally, we reached it. Observation hole B in through the window of room 12. I saw her, sitting cross-legged in a white hospital gown, her hair longer now, eyes sunken, but still her, Chloe. She was humming, softly, a melody I hadn't heard in years, our childhood lullaby. Her face tilted toward the window, slowly, as if sensing me. And then, for a fraction of a second, our eyes met. She blinked, tilted her head, and whispered something I couldn't hear. My heart shattered, because I didn't know if she recognized me, or if I was just another shadow watching her sleep. The moment Chloe looked at me, just one blink, one flicker of recognition, I felt both hope and fear collide in my chest. Because while her eyes were pointed in my direction, they held no expression I recognized. No fire, no confusion, no joy. It was like she saw me, but didn't see me at all. Her lips were moving, repeating the same sentence in a loop. I will respond when requested. I will respond when requested. She was gone. Or at least the version of her I remembered was. Lucas grabbed my arm to pull me back from the glass just as a camera above her room blinked red. We triggered something, he muttered. We started moving, fast, down the hallway, turning right at the service access where Cole told us the blind spot would be. I couldn't stop replaying the side of her face in my mind, expressionless, mechanical, and yet, behind her eyes, something still stirred, something trying to fight. That was the Chloe I needed to reach. That was the sister who sent the tapes. We made it into the auxiliary server room without being caught. Lucas connected the tablet to the access panel and started decrypting internal logs. What we found made my skin go cold. Chloe had undergone 37 sessions of cognitive fragmentation therapy, designed to sever emotional response from traumatic memory, making her a candidate for phase theta full emotional overwrite. The worst part, the next session was scheduled for today in 1 hour. If she went through it, they'd complete the final cut, the last tied to her identity. We have to move now, I said. Lucas found her room assignment and the path to the neurological transfer lab we needed to intercept the doctors before she was moved. That meant exposure, risk, but there was no choice left. As we moved down the east corridor, we passed a doorway marked Observation Suite Echo Alpha. I paused. Inside were 2 more girls, silent, pale, sitting perfectly still, their eyes tracking our movement like machines. One of them mouthed something I couldn't hear. I stepped closer. She mouthed again. Don't leave her, my heart cracked. These weren't just test subjects, they were prisoners of silence, victims of a system that erased voices and replaced them with obedience. Lucas yanked me forward, and we reached the stairwell, 2 levels down. The lab was locked. We used the staff badge Cole provided and slipped in just as the internal lights blinked on. 2 white coats were prepping the neural transfer station. I saw the programming spike on the monitor. Echo 9B. Override level 3. Complete emotional dissonance expected. I stormed in, mask over my face, voice firm, emergency protocol from top line. Lab lockdown. Removed the subject. They hesitated. Too long. Lucas pulled the fire alarm, and chaos began. Sirens, lights, shouting. In the confusion, I slipped into Chloe's room with a key Lucas hacked from the system. She was still sitting, still humming, still saying the line. I knelt in front of her. Chloe, it's me, Emily. Please, come back. She blinked, once, then again. Echo, she whispered. I am Echo. Her voice cracked. Then, faintly, it was her. She remembered. Tears poured down my face as I unstrapped her arms. Her body was weak, barely able to stand. I held her. You're coming home. I swear. She leaned into me, whispering. They made me forget. But I kept a peace. In the lullaby, she began humming again. The song, the one Mom used to sing. She had buried her identity inside a melody. The guards were now flooding the hallway. Lucas tossed me a stun rod. Take her, now. He fought 2 of them off as I carried Chloe into the ventilation shaft he prepped. Earlier, crawling with her was like pulling a ghost through metal, her body limp, breath short, but her grip was tight. She wasn't letting go. Not again. We exited into the north courtyard. Cole was waiting in a stolen transport vehicle. We jumped in just as the alarm reached full volume. Sirens screamed behind us. Gunshots, shouts. But we were gone. Chloe was breathing, crying, awake. But not free, not yet, because they were coming. And I knew the glass nest wasn't their only hive. This was just the beginning. We didn't speak for the first 3 hours of the escape. Not a single word passed between us as Cole drove through winding back roads and old logging paths. The stolen vehicle rattling over potholes while fog thickened around the farce like a second skin. Chloe sat pressed against me in the back seat, her head resting on my shoulder, eyes open but distant, as if her body had been rescued, but her soul was still pacing the white-tiled prison she'd been locked in for years. Her fingers twitched occasionally, tapping the rhythm of the lullaby she had buried her memories inside, and I held her hand tightly, afraid that if I let go, she might fade into echo again. Lucas sat in the passenger seat, bruised and bloodied from the fight during the breakout, but alive, and that was all that mattered. We drove until the fuel ran out, then hiked miles through dense trees to an abandoned cabin Cole had prepped years ago, stocked with food, med kits, burner phones, and a generator. Once the door was shut and barred from the inside, only then did we allow ourselves to breathe. But not fully. We knew they would come. Aethel never let their subjects go. That night, I sat with Chloe on a creaky mattress as she stared blankly at the wall. Do you know where you are? I asked gently. She blinked, nodded, then whispered, with you. That was the first time I cried in front of her since she disappeared. She wiped my tears away and said, you came through the glass. I thought you were a dream. Her voice cracked like ice breaking after years beneath snow. She remembered pieces, not all, but enough. She said they called her Echo, trained her to forget, told her memories were emotional malware that had to be wiped for her new identity to install. She'd gone through memory redirection therapy, image response reversal, even sleep fragmentation protocols. But the lullaby that was hers, ours, she had buried her name inside it, humming it every night to remind herself she was Chloe, not Echo, not Subject 9B, not a ghost. Lucas spent the next day analyzing the data we'd stolen, buried deep in encrypted folders, was something worse than anything we'd seen so far. The expansion protocol. Chloe wasn't the only subject. There were dozens, some failed, some repurposed, some active. And the facility we raided, just one of 6, each designed to train, test, and erase children and young adults with high emotional cognitive index scores, targets selected through full psychiatric referrals, missing children cases, and even parental consent under fabricated treatment programs. Aethel had been operating under the radar for over 2 decades, backed by private investors, anonymous trusts, and allegedly government silence. And now they had a problem. Chloe was alive, free, and the data proving their crimes was in our hands. That night, we lost power. Not the generator. The whole block of signal jammers Lucas set up went dead. Someone had found us. Cole bolted the front door, shotgun in hand, while Lucas scrambled to trace where the breach came from. I grabbed Chloe, tucked her behind a bookshelf, and whispered, stay silent, no matter what. But it wasn't an attack, not yet, just a warning. A red laser dot scanned across the wall, then blinked twice. Then it was gone. Lucas confirmed it. They went storming and they were watching, listening, waiting. The next morning, Cole was gone, vanished, no note, no blood, just gone. His burner phone was smashed beside the front porch. We knew we couldn't hide forever, so we started uploading the data to multiple locations, cloud drives, secure leaks, dead drop email chains. Lucas wrote an automated bot to trigger The data release if we went dark for 72 hours. But we needed more. We needed them to suffer. Chloe, in her fragile strength, asked to help. She remembered codes, passwords. A man named Dr. Remy kept a failsafe USB, a black device worn like a pendant that contained core experimental logs. If we could get that, it would unlock everything. We tracked Remy through a hidden satellite tracker Lucas found on an archived contact sheet. He was no longer at the Glass Nest. He was in Chicago, lecturing under false identity at a neuroscience summit, presenting research on emotional resilience in trauma patients. The irony almost made me laugh. He was parading his crimes as science, so we planned our next mission not to rescue this time, but to expose. To end this, Chloe looked me in the eye that night and whispered, "If I lose myself again, don't let them use me." I promised her, no matter what happened, I would protect her soul, even if it meant taking a life. And as we left that cabin at dawn, headed toward the city of masks and men in white coats, I knew one thing for certain. This time, we weren't running from Echo. We were bringing Echo to them. Chicago didn't feel like a city. When we arrived, it felt like a trap disguised as civilization, with its blinking billboards, polished skyscrapers, and the hollow echo of street music bouncing through tunnels that reminded me too much of underground labs and padded rooms. Chloe sat between Lucas and me in the back of the rideshare van we booked under a dummy account, her hood drawn over her head, sunglasses covering eyes still sensitive to light after years of artificial sleep cycles and control environments. She said little on the drive, except for one chilling line as we neared the conference venue. "If he sees me, he'll know I'm not gone." I understood what she meant. Dr. Remy believed she had been converted, erased, overwritten like a file, and seeing her alive, conscious, outside his control would not just threaten his work, it would dismantle everything he had spent decades creating. Lucas parked the van near the loading dock of the venue, an enormous research center partnered with multiple medical universities. Inside, thousands of people buzzed around poster presentations and neuroscience demos, unaware that among them stood a man responsible for orchestrating memory assassinations on dozens of innocent children. Remy was scheduled to speak in room B14. We slipped in early. Chloe remained outside, wired with an earpiece, her voice a lifeline, while Lucas and I blended with attendees and took our seats. At exactly 11 o'clock a.m., he walked on stage, Dr. Remy Strath, taller than I remembered from the photo in the diary room, cleaner, sharper, his face void of remorse. He introduced himself as Dr. Remy Sutherland, a specialist in post-traumatic resilience, and began speaking about rebuilding minds shattered by memory dysfunction. A cruel twist of truth wrapped in scientific jargon. Chloe's breathing in the earpiece grew erratic. "He's wearing it," she whispered. "The pendant, the black one. He never takes it off." I scanned his chest and saw it. A small onyx pendant dangling from a silver chain. The failsafe USB. It was right there. Lucas leaned toward me. "We can't grab it here." To many eyes, I nodded, already calculating a better place to corner him. After his talk, Remy exited through a security-only hallway. We followed from a distance, Chloe guiding us via the tracker Lucas had hacked into the venue's internal camera system. She led us to a private suite he was assigned, room 514, which was located in the top floor executive wing. Chloe's voice cracked through the earpiece again. "There's another man with him. I saw him before. Room 41. He called himself Director Valen." That name sent ice down my spine. Valen. I had seen it in the archived files, a ghost name tied to facility approvals and subject terminations. If he was here, we were in deeper than we realized. Lucas jammed the whole webcams for 90 seconds. That was all we had. I pulled my hood up, wrapped a lanyard with a fake staff badge around my neck, and walked directly into the hallway. The door to room 514 opened slightly as a server left with a food tray. I slipped in behind him and closed the door silently. Inside, Remy stood at a sleek bar, pouring scotch. Valen, a gaunt man with piercing gray eyes, sat on the couch reading from a tablet. I moved quickly, without hesitation, stepping up behind Remy and pressing a cold needle to his neck, the same sedative they once used on. Chloe, you flinch. You fall, I whispered. Turn around slowly. He froze. Then, without turning, said, "You shouldn't be alive." I replied. "Neither should you," Lucas stormed in, tying up Valen while I yanked the pendant from Remy's neck and pocketed it. We injected him with a serum that Chloe had described, a mix of memory destabilizers they'd used on her only this time. We reversed the dosage. He collapsed, groaning, his mind slipping into confusion. We dragged them both into the hotel's service elevator and down into the sub-basement. There, in a soundproof utility room, we made our stand. Chloe entered moments later, wearing the clothes we'd prepared. Stepping slowly into the light, Remy saw her and whispered, "Echo," but she didn't respond with that name. "My name is Chloe Warren," she said, her voice trembling but loud. "You stole my life, and now I'm going to take yours back." We forced them to confess on camera. Lucas had set up a rig to record every word. They spoke of the experiments, the facilities, the funding, the children, the memory erasure trials, the splicing of emotional blueprints. It was all there, their voices, their faces, their crimes. We didn't kill them. We didn't have to. We left them sedated and handcuffed, placed an anonymous call to a global human rights task force, and emailed a live video feed to every major media outlet, encrypted with Chloe's voice signature as confirmation of authenticity. Then we vanished, left the city, went dark. Chloe slept for the first full night in years, peacefully, without tremors, without nightmares. She was healing, slowly, and I was learning how to be a sister again. Not a soldier, not a savior, just someone who sat beside her in silence, ready to protect, but not push. But a week later, Lucas received a private message on a burner line. Echo 7C found in Norway. Protocol expansion still active. Director replacements underway. We thought we ended it, but the system goes deeper. And Echo is far from over. We should have felt safe after Chicago, after exposing Dr. Remy and Director Valen, after leaking their confessions to the world, after watching the media erupt in headlines and whispers. But safety is a myth when you've touched the roots of something that doesn't just hide in shadows, but is the shadow, embedded in systems, protocols, governments, and people you're trained to trust. So when Lucas got that burner message, Echo 7C found in Norway, none of us slept that night. Chloe curled into herself on the motel mattress, whispering the lullaby that had once saved her from cognitive deletion. Her fingers twitching as memories she never lived flickered through her like echoes of someone else's past, because that's what the program did. It didn't just erase identity. It rewrote it using fragments of other subjects, layering personalities, bleeding thoughts together like watercolors until the host forgot which pain was theirs and which one was stitched in. Echo 7C wasn't just another victim. She was possibly a part of Chloe, or Chloe a part of her. We debated what to do. Disappear again. Burn everything down. But Chloe made the decision for us. She stood in the center of the motel room, face pale but voice steady, and said, "I have to see her. If they're still making us, I need to see who I was meant to replace." And that's when it hit me. Chloe wasn't just trying to stop Aethel. She was trying to understand herself, not the version they carved, but the broken line between who she was before and who she could have become if they had succeeded. So we made a plan. Aethel's Nordic division operated under a shell company, Arvis Buyer Consult, located in the outskirts of Bergen, Norway, hidden as a psychiatric recovery facility for trauma patients. We needed new passports, clean travel routes, and access into a foreign facility with no legal way in. Lucas reached out to an old contact, a Ukrainian data broker named Lina, who owed him a favor. Within days, we had new IDs, clean papers, and a flight routed through Iceland, then Sweden, then a ferry into Norway under civilian disguise. Chloe was listed as a mute psychiatric survivor under my guardianship. She didn't need to act much, her silence was real. The wake of what lay ahead kept her locked behind her own eyes. The moment we arrived in Bergen, we were followed. Not closely, not obviously, but there was always someone in the mirror. A man in the cafe focused on nothing. A woman brushing her coat sleeve against mine to precisely. Aethel knew, not that we were coming, that we hadn't stopped. Arvis looked like a luxury clinic, white walls, green lawns, flowers blooming outside every patient window, but inside, it reeked of cold design, long corridors, passive security, staff that smiled too much. Chloe walked the halls, her eyes scanning every room, every angle. In a restricted wing, she stopped cold. Through the observation glass of room 9, a girl sat cross-legged on the floor, 15, maybe 16, with pale blonde hair, scars down her forearms, and a gaze that felt ancient. That's her, Chloe said. Echo 7C. I looked closer. The girl was drawing with chalk, symbols, spirals, the same ones Chloe used to sketch in her sleep. She wasn't just another subject, she was linked. Echo 7C turned and stared at us through the glass. Not surprised, she whispered something. The camera feed had no sound. But Chloe read her lips. Are you my shadow? That night, Lucas hacked the internal database. Files on Echo 7C revealed chilling data. Subject 7C housed memory clusters from failed Subject 3A and imprint sequences from 9B from Chloe. They had tried to overwrite 7C with fragments of Chloe's emotional response charts, effectively creating a replica. But something went wrong. The girl fractured. Dissociative breaks. Multiple attempted suicides. But she survived. Barely. Now, they were trying to stabilize her using Echo 9B's core schema, Chloe's personality. Chloe broke down when she read it. They made her out of me, and they broke her trying to be me. It was too much, but we weren't done. The next log detail phase Lambda, scheduled in 48 hours final override. Echo 7C would be wiped, recast, restarted. We had to stop it. We orchestrated a blackout. Lucas looped security feeds. I triggered a false evacuation alert. Chloe walked into room 9 under cover of chaos. And when Echo 7C looked at her, something shattered between them, a silent recognition deeper than DNA. I remember, 7C whispered, your scream, your fire. Chloe knelt beside her, you're not me, and I'm not them. We survive, both of us. We sedated her gently, wrapped her in a blanket, and carried her out through the back fire exit into the storm. By the time the staff realized it wasn't a drill, we were gone. 3 girls. 3 stories, 1 system that tried to erase them all. But Echo was memory. And memory never dies. Quietly, the air in the bunker was damp and stale. A place once built for secrecy, but now humming softly with warmth and recovery, the kind that isn't immediate, but fragile and slow. The kind that comes after everything's been taken and something, human, still decides to rebuild itself. We had converted the old tech shelter into a safe house, somewhere between Oslo and nowhere, deep in the forest and far from what anyone would think of as home. But it had become ours, mine, Chloe's, Lucas's, and now 7C's, who told us her name was Lina after 3 days of silence. Her voice rough like it had forgotten how to exist. Chloe and Lina slept in the same room now, not because they needed to, but because neither of them could close their eyes without knowing the other was nearby. I watched them heal together, to broken mirrors slowly fitting their pieces round each other. Not perfectly, honestly. Lina still woke up screaming sometimes, muttering things in languages she'd never learned. Fragments of other Echo subjects still tangled in her mind, and Chloe would sit beside her, hum the lullaby, and say, you're not them, you're you, and I'm here. And Lina would cry not because she was scared anymore, but because someone was holding her through it. Meanwhile, Lucas and I kept working. We weren't just running now, we were fighting back. The files we leaked had triggered an international investigation, and though Aethel had gone dark, the fallout had begun. Headlines like biotech firm accused of human identity experiments, flashed across global networks. Anonymous testimonies began surfacing. Survivors, former staff, even doctors who had walked away, guilty and scared. But none of it mattered unless we hit the root. We learned of the Echo Arc, a hidden data archive said to contain the original brain mapping and emotional synthesis records of every subject from one Aethel. Act 12F, it was rumored to be stored inside a decommissioned data station beneath the Helix complex, a secret facility buried under a mountain in northern Canada, abandoned after a structural collapse 5 years ago. If we found it and released the full archive, no one could ever deny what was done. Not the public, not governments, not the architects behind the system. We made a choice. One last mission. Lucas got us into Canada on diplomatic override credentials we borrowed from a corrupted embassy source. Chloe and Lina stayed behind. Not because they were weak, but because they had already lived enough hell. This was ours now. Mine and Lucas's. We snowshoed 6 hours across the northern boundary, then rappelled into a ravine where the Helix complex's emergency shaft was hidden. It was a dead place. Metallic bones frozen in time, filled with rusted consoles and cracked walls, but the server vault remained intact, buried, sealed, but pulsing faintly. Lucas worked fast. I kept watch. The files were real, not just experiments, but names, dozens, hundreds, real people with birthdays, families, medical charts, school records, lives that were stolen, digitized, rewritten. Then came the siren. Not from us, from them. Aethel was here. They'd been watching, waiting, not to stop us from finding the truth, but to see who was stupid enough to try. A drone descended into the shaft. Voice robotic. Subject Chloe Warren. Termination order incomplete. Retrieval rescheduled. All witnesses are expendable. I fired at the drone. Missed. Lucas pulled me behind a beam. Go, he screamed. Take the backup. I'll hold them. I shook my head. Screamed back. We leave together or not at all. But he grabbed my hand and said, she needs one of us to make it back. She needs you. Then he kissed my forehead and ran into the opposite tunnel, drawing their fire. I wanted to run after him, but I didn't. I ran up, out, into the blizzard, clutching the drive like a newborn. I made it to a contact drop in Yellowknife, uploaded the data through a satellite burst. It went live in under 10 minutes. The world watched everything. The names, the faces, the maps, the logs. It trended in every language. Echo protocol exposed. Government hearings opened, arrests, raids, sanctions, protests. Chloe's photo flashed on TV screens in Times Square. Lina's drawing of spirals became a symbol for resistance. But Lucas was gone. I held onto the hope he survived. I still do. Maybe someday I'll find him again. Maybe he's out there, hiding like we used to, building something in the dark. Now, I live in a cabin again. Not the old one, a better one. Chloe paints. Lina writes music. I grow herbs and stack firewood and breathe. For the first time, we don't just survive, we exist. Together, the system didn't win. We broke the silence. We shattered the lab doors. We named the unnamed. And in doing so, we gave memory a voice. If you made it to the end of this story, thank you. This was my truth. This was my fight. And if you're still listening, please subscribe, share, and tell someone what Echo really was, because silence protects monsters. And we're done being quiet.